Welcome to this webinar, and Mr. Mykhailo Vydoinyk, Mr. Ambassador from Ukraine, is with us today. Obviously, we have a terrible situation where a very aggressive Putin have invaded a fellow friendly country with 41 million citizens and basically started bombing and killing people because he wants to expand his territory. I think we all feel really deeply sad about this development, and at the same time we are in far and safe distance, at least for now, from the very evil actions that we see Putin is taking on Ukraine, its people. And at the same time we've seen very strong Ukrainian leadership. I think it is really touching to see how President Zelensky are out there in the streets, being with the people, tirelessly trying to communicate, gather help, motivate the troops. And at the same time we see Putin, who is afraid of getting more than 20 meters close to anyone because he's afraid of corona. It's really sad situation we see now. And obviously in Saxo Bank we really support the Ukrainian people. Hence we would like to give you some voice here today and talk about the situation, and also maybe give us some better perspectives, but not least, how can we help? Because how can normal people help in a very political environment with military actions? Hopefully we'll hear more about that today. And Steen Jakobsen, our Chief Economist, will interview you, Mr. Ambassador, and I'm really proud and happy you can spare time in this very busy schedule in this terrible situation. So welcome.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, dear colleagues. I mean, I would prefer, of course, to have another occasion for this meeting with you. Unfortunately, Kim rightly mentioned that Ukraine is in danger. Ukrainian people are dying. Russia started this barbarian war against my country. Nobody believed until the very end that he will take this decision. We still thought that he wants peace and he wants to find the peaceful solution of the conflict, which Ukraine was with Russia for over 8 years. Unfortunately, Russian Putin decided other way. He decided to choose war instead of peace. So now we will fight. We are in new circumstances, and then I will tell a little bit maybe later, if you have any questions specific, what's going on in my country and how can you particularly help my people.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. And why don't we start on that situation, because I know around Saxo, around Denmark, around the world, we all ask ourselves as civilians, what can we do? And I know you have been very vocal in Denmark and in international press. So, Mr. Ambassador, what can we do to help on an individual level to start with?
I mean, really, I'm very glad that people of Saxo Bank, your clients, expressed readiness to help and initiated this meeting. What they can do? First of all, they can help our country to resist the enemy and to repel all of the attacks. By what means? You can donate money. I think this is the easiest way how to help Ukraine. Our national bank opened a special account. I will share with the data. I think you will have it maybe later.
We will have a link.
You will have a link, but this is the first and the fastest way. You can just simply donate money to the bank account, which have been particularly opened by our national bank. Also, we are right now trying to gather as much as possible humanitarian aid for Ukrainian people. Unfortunately, Russians started using another tactics. They started shelling already on civilian districts of the city. So more and more civilian casualties are taking place in the country. It means that people are afraid, people are fleeing, and they need some shelter and they need some help because they just running out of their cities, of their houses with just bare hands, with just some clothes and piece of food they have. So humanitarian aid is also something which we urgently need. First of all, food, then things like blankets, mattresses, pillows. I mean, it's sleeping bags, tents. It's cold outside. a lot of people cannot find houses or apartments in the western part of Ukraine, so we are trying, and we already started building the emergency centers in some of the cities where it is a little bit safer. So of course for those who are there, we need these things, so to say, the first aid things, which they definitely need. We have a lot of kids running together with their mothers, so even the small babies, and of course they need also milk, they need pampers, they need, I mean, everything. I think everybody understands what is the first aid.
And
necessary.
the best vehicle to do that will be some of the humanitarian UN-backed, the Danish Red Cross, and other humanitarian organizations.
Well,
right?
you can do it both ways. As I said, you can directly donate money to the account of the National Bank, which is in Ukraine, because our government is controlling majority of our territory, so still the business is running there in terms of how local business can help. First of all, food producers and supermarket chains, they are working 24/7 and in order to provide food for the Ukrainians. So the government will use those money, of course, to buy food first of all, and also to pay maybe some smaller amount of money to the pensioners, to elderly people, because of course everybody needs some financial resources. But also you can do it, as you mentioned, via Red Cross. You have Danish local organizations like Dan Church, you have Caritas, you have other humanitarian organizations, which are Danish refugee camp, if I'm not mistaken. You have also your foreign ministry, which is gladly helping us to coordinate this assistance. So we have established kind of a headquarters staff or something like that, and we have liaison officers from the foreign ministry of Denmark, so they are in close contact with us. And so whenever you have some ideas how to assist, or maybe you're lacking some information, you may always address our embassy. Unfortunately, I should mention that our official webpage is hacked and the official emails are not working. But you can follow us on the Facebook, you can follow us on Twitter, you can write us exactly via the social media, and we will try to reply.
Mr. Ambassador, there is a big conversation in Denmark among the business people, and I'm sure it's the same conversation around the world, where not only Saxo has offices, but generally. I think a lot of companies wants to do the right thing, but I know from our little chat before we started that you have a request on Danish companies and global companies in terms of what goes on, Mr. Ambassador.
Yeah, that's true. And my request, again, I will split into two, let's say, parts. The first part is, of course, as you mentioned before, and we have been discussing this, help Ukraine. Whatever you are able to do, money, staff, or other way of communication, we have been addressed by several transport companies that they are ready to provide buses, for example, to deliver refugees from the border with Poland, for example, and to deliver further to Germany or to Denmark. Even I received 2 offers from the airplane company, which is also ready to provide the airplane to also to take people from the border. So this is one part. Another part which I would kindly ask you. Right now, the whole civilized world is fighting against Putin. That means that harsh sanctions should be imposed and to punish his regime. Don't waste time. Don't wait until the EU or NATO allies will adopt further range of sanctions on the, let's say, official level. You can do it from your own. Please stop selling any Russian products if you have anything on your shelves. Remove them. Stop any business contacts which you have right now with Russia. Follow the examples of Müller-Maersk. Stop flights to Russia and out of Russia. Stop any single communication which you have. If you have any cooperations with other organizations, with universities, with cultural, with theaters, I mean, don't waste time, because the more you are hesitating, the more blood of Ukrainian children killed by Russians will be also on your sleeves. Pardon to say that, but this is our own, not our own war, but this is the war of civilized world. world and this evil barbarian Putin, and we should stop him, whatever means we have in our hands.
Mr. Ambassador, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends, and this may sound like a crazy question in the sense that you are someone who represent a country who is fighting for independence, who to some extent it is fighting for democracy and independence and decency. But I know a lot of my colleagues have children that's having nightmares at night about being in a war. You are in a war. I fully respect that. I only say this because I think as someone who's taking a challenge to take the last standoff, to be committing all resources. I know yourself, Mr. Ambassador, you have said publicly very soon, maybe one day, you have to leave your post to go back and fight yourself. But what is that you can say to these young children, to these young parents, in terms of, one, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and is there hope in this process, sir?
Look, in terms of, let's say, generally speaking, what's going on in Ukraine, we are protecting our future. We want to live in a free country. We want to live in a country where Ukrainian flag will be hanging over Ukrainian parliament. We want to sing our anthem. We want to listen to Ukrainian musicians and to listen to our music. This is deeply in our hearts, and this is what motivates people the most. We understand that Russia is bigger in terms of the military power than us, and the chances to win this war by only military means are of course not that high. But people are so motivated, you can't believe us how they behave in these difficult times. So when addressing you and also parents or children, yes, it's a really huge problem. It will be a bigger even problem at the later stage, because I have also 2 kids. My son is 15, my daughter is 4. And already every single day, believe us, we are trying to, not to let them read more news or to watch some bad news from Ukraine, but he is already, I mean, especially my son, he is already in a kind of a psychological problem, because he's always asking me what's happening back in Ukraine. My brother is in Ukraine. My wife's brother is there in the army too. So we all are, of course, worried about them, about their lives. And this is something which I would like also to tell you, that please don't waste time. Don't stay at home and just watch what's going on in Ukraine. Whatever you can do on your place, try to help. That will be really very helpful, and that's what also unites Ukrainian people. When they see so many flags, Ukrainian flags, hanging over the Danish municipalities, or when I came here to Saxo Bank, you also put it as a solidarity with Ukraine. Believe us, this is nothing more which you can do. I mean, to show us that we are not alone. This really matters, and this motivates so much our people, because they are calling me. I have a lot of friends from Ukraine. They hope that I have more a little bit insights as I'm ambassador. Perhaps I have access to more intelligence data. They're all asking, what's happening, what's going on, what are the chances? And I always say, don't worry, stay firm. European and Euro-Atlantic partnership partners, they are helping us. Military assistance is coming. Everything will be fine. You're not alone. And I mean, I just got, smiles from the back side from Ukraine saying, and this power, emoji that yeah, we are strong, we stay united, and so people believe in us, and that's really very good.
Maybe we should mention that we had to move around our schedule this morning because you're going to attend a parliamentary session with the Danish Parliament. Mr. Ambassador, what is going to happen today at 9:45, 10 o'clock in the Danish Parliament?
Well, I was invited by your Parliament to participate in a special event organized by the Parliament to express solidarity with Ukraine. So all the politicians will be in the Parliament, and as far as I know, the speaker will have some speech, and also there is a plan to hang Ukrainian flag over the Parliament or in the Parliament. So this is also a big gesture of support of Denmark, because politicians are representing different people, different political parties. So it's a little bit even bigger than just the government. And that's really something which impresses me, which also motivates me to work harder, to knock every single door of every single politician here and ask and to talk to them what kind of support they may grant or what kind of other assistance which Ukraine might need could be given from their side. So I really appreciate this initiative, and yeah, I'm right after our today's interview, I will go to the Parliament.
Mr. Ambassador, if you allow me, let's move on to the actual situation in Ukraine, because not only are we interested from the humanitarian side, but in my analysis, we've had a paradigm shift in Europe, militarily, security-wise, and I think the EU Commission Chair von der Leyen said more has happened in now the last 8 days than in the last 2 decades in terms of uniting Europe. This is all due to your fighting back and being what you are. But what is the situation, Mr. Ambassador, right now? Because as you know, the propaganda war is on, and it's hard to navigate even for someone as seasoned as me, having done this job for 30 years. What is going on right now? And second question, which is natural, of course, how do you see the next 7 to 10 weeks? Are we close to a peace talk, or where are we, Mr. Ambassador?
Thank you for this question. Well, heavy battles are taking place on our land these days. Today at night, I think I've got some messages that around 4 long-range missiles have been launched at Kyiv city, and they destroyed some of the civilian also buildings. There are casualties. There are really heavy battles in Mariupol. This is southern east of Ukraine, near the Donbas region, where the occupied territories were located. So there is a big really battle over there. There is also a huge battle in the surroundings to Kharkiv. This is one of the largest Ukrainian city, also close to the Russian border, like 30 kilometers if I'm not mistaken. Also, there are battles from the southern part of Ukraine, where they invaded from occupied peninsula Crimea. So far, our people are really repelling attacks very successfully, although we have also casualties, and we understand that unfortunately the war takes lives of the best people of Ukraine, strong young people who are, instead of working on the field or on the factory, should take weapon and protect the country. But nobody is eager to surrender. There is a big pressure on everyone to motivate each other and to repel the attacks. You can even observe a lot of videos where just civilians, without having any weapon in their hands, go into the streets and stopping the columns of Russian tanks which are heading towards bigger cities. So this is really horrible to observe, and horrible to understand how people feel themselves there. Many people spend their nights in the bomb shelters and also days. Many of them don't have enough food. But on the other hand, we are really motivated to protect the country, and my prediction is that we are ready to negotiate peace agreement. And as you know, there were already, I think just yesterday, there was another round of negotiations, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it will take place today, because I don't have also enough information coming from Kyiv these days. But we are ready for peace talks. But we have also our red lines which we cannot cross. And we will not surrender. That's what motivates us the most. So we will see what the developments will be. Don't also forget that Russia is already suffering from the economic sanctions. I can see the panic, you can see the exchange rate of ruble, you can see what's happening on the stocks, and already several oligarchs addressed openly the people and Putin that you should find the solution, you should stop this. We can see that they are also suffering, and they are suffering a lot. They thought that it will be easygoing war, just 1 or 2 days, and they will be in Kyiv, but it's not the reality. And they didn't expect that the world will be so united. I mean, the Western world, that there will be this, change of their attitude towards granting Ukraine military assistance or not, helping Ukraine or not. I mean, they thought that West, especially EU, is not courageous enough to take this decision. But again, they made a mistake. So far, we are optimistic about the developments, although we understand that every single day of continuation of war means loss of our people's life. And that's what my president wants the most, to save all of the Ukrainians. But on the other hand, we all understand that we should fight for our freedom. Unfortunately, we should pay for this with our blood. But this is the reality.
Mr. Ambassador, I cannot express enough sympathy and sadness on the situation. And we need to talk about this because hopefully soon this will end and there's another day starting, a more optimistic future. Would it be more important for Ukraine to join the NATO relatively to the EU, or are they interlinked and important for a country like Ukraine?
Look, we have, I think, for the last couple of months, a lot of debates around NATO membership of Ukraine, because Putin openly demanded from the West to declare that NATO will not expand. You know all these stories from him and all these demands. But where Ukraine was in the past and why Ukraine wanted to join NATO, we already mentioned several times. Yeah, back in 90s we refused from the third biggest arsenal of nuclear weapon in the world, and instead we got guarantees from big powers of the world like United States, Britain, and Russia, that they will protect our sovereignty, that they will protect our territorial integrity, and in case of invasion they will, let's say, immediately react. Then, back in 2014, Ukraine was still NATO neutral country, and it didn't help us neither. Russia started occupation of Crimea and war in the east of Ukraine. So, in these new circumstances, the only solution we could find was to start negotiations with NATO allies to join NATO, because we don't have any other organization in the world, especially in the neighborhood of Ukraine, which is NATO-like and which would give us security guarantees. So our demand was not just simply to join NATO, but to create the surroundings where we will be guaranteed that Ukraine's security is in safe. So we were open to start negotiations with Russian and also with NATO to do that. And don't forget also about the fact that Russia is also expanding its sphere of influence. They have opposite organization, ODKB, called in Russian spelling, so Organization of Collective Defense, where Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, maybe Armenia, if I'm not mistaken, they are party to this organization. So it's a competitive, let's say, organization which has its own interest also to expand. So between those two, of course, we are choosing NATO because we are closer to you. We share the same values, and these days, in particular, Ukrainians proved to the whole world that we are a democratic country. We have the same values, and we are ready to fight. Stupidly thinking about values, you cannot, touch it. But this is something which is in our heart, to fight for this freedom, to fight for the possibility to choose our president, to elect him, to fight for the possibility to have your own opinion and to express it openly. These are the main values which were motivating people to go to Maidan, and also right now to start this war, not to start, but to start this repelling, let's say, of attacks which Russians
and I think for the viewer that there is, in a diplomatic sense, and I'm sure you've seen this yourself, Mr. Ambassador, it's interesting that Switzerland, who have always been neutral, has violated its own constitution to sit on the side of Ukraine. We know that there are right now high-level talks in both Finland and Sweden, neutral countries, to join the NATO, so I'm sure we'll hear more about that. But there's one question, Mr. Ambassador, I have to get your opinion on, and that is the question that no one understands. What do you, Mr. Ambassador, think the end game for Putin is on all this?
Well, I think that as I mentioned already, he thought that he will take Ukraine under control within 1 or 2 days, that everybody will welcome him as to some extent it was back in 2014. We had a lot of Ukrainians who were supporting Russian and they were thinking that it's better to be with them instead of joining the EU. But these days, and also these 8 years of war with Russia, show to everyone in Ukraine what Russia is about. We can see what's happening in the occupied territories, how people live there, and we see what Russian world means, and that's what exactly motivates us to stay united and to defend our country. And that's a big mistake which Putin made, because as I said, he thought that he will take Ukraine very easily. So far, we don't know what is his plan, but it looks like he wants to take control to finish this war with the victory. On the other hand, we are sure that it will be, I already said in some interviews even before the invasion, that if he starts this invasion, it will be the beginning of the end of his regime. I'm more than sure. And you will see that Russia also will fall. I mean, the Putin regimes will fall, and they will have another leaders, and we will find the ability to further to reach a peaceful agreement with Russians, because they are our neighbors. We have to talk to each other, and we have to find the solutions. But so far, when Putin is in power, I think it will be difficult. But you will see that the days of his regime will be soon over.
I should say, Mr. Ambassador, some of the questions I'm now asking is coming from the viewers and the audience, and one of them is right here. Before the invasion began, several estimations was made by Ukraine officials that Ukraine could fend up invaders for up to 6 months. Are you still comfortable in that?
Look, I think we are more than confident that we are able to defend the country even longer. And you just mentioned that Switzerland changed its mind, that also Sweden and also Norway. I mean, I also received a lot of messages from my colleagues from the capitals, and they are saying that really, including Germany, let's be honest, I mean, until the very last moment they were refusing to provide military assistance to Ukraine. But right now the world is with us. That means that we are capable enough to defend the country. We have 41 million of people. Russian army is only 1 million. Equipped, of course, we understand it, but we are 41 million. And I don't think that Russians will be so gladly joining Russian army in case of the need. So we are capable to defend the country.
I think I know the answer to this question, Mr. Ambassador. I'll ask it anyway. Do you envision a future where Russia and Ukraine is collaborating closer?
Look, we have a lot of histories and stories from the past, where nations were fighting each other, but at the end they start cooperating. You can see it was Germany in particular after the Second World War. Of course, I see that we will cooperate in the future. But I think Russians should say to us, forgive us for not to go and protest against this invasion, for staying at home, for being afraid of taking to the, so to say, to the prison for a couple of days, because they are violating the civil order in the city by going to the protest. I once mentioned also, or was quoting one of our journalists who said, when he was interviewing one of Russian politicians or a member of opposition party, and he was asking, I think a couple of days ago, why don't you go and protest? Why do you stay at home? And he said, look, people are afraid of being captured by the police for violating the Russian legislation. But I said, look, he said, we have different types of fear. You are afraid of spending just a couple of nights in the prison where it's warm, where you will have food and water. And we are afraid of being killed today or tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So comparing this level of fear, don't be afraid. That's my direct also request to Russians. Don't be afraid. Start doing things, start protesting, because your silence will shed more and more blood of Ukrainian people.
As an extension of that question, when Ukraine is hopefully successful in fighting off Putin, how do you see and this is a fact, the eastern region has been a political issue almost since the beginning of Ukraine independence in 91, and Crimea and Donbass and the pro-Russian minorities, which of course is a very natural part of Ukraine. How do you see that, envision that? I know, Mr. Ambassador, is into the future, but I think it's as clearly the viewers are saying this is a critical question they need to understand.
Of course, I mean, I want you and your viewers to understand what's going on in Russia for centuries, not just but for centuries. Russia and Russian Empire, then Soviet Union, they were always hiding the reality from their population. We all know already from the history about Stalin's Gulag, about the execution of almost 2 million of Russian people and Ukrainian and other nationalities in Siberia for not, let's say, following the Soviet party let's say, principles and for opposing this communist regime in the Soviet Union. Only right now people learn about what's happening in the reality back then. The same happens right now. People are blind. They don't have access to the information. The Russian propaganda works so well. All the channels, they are just pouring these fake news into the minds of Russians. So sooner or later you will see that Russians will understand what happened in Ukraine, who invaded Ukraine, what was the reason for that. And I'm more than sure that in the future we will find the solution how to cooperate and to live together. All the same goes to those who are in the occupied territories. They are under the influence of Russian propaganda. They thought that EU are just, eating children and taking them. Even about Denmark, there were fake news that the Danish authorities are immediately taking children from their parents. And they were even showing some pictures. Behaving brutally. So Russian propaganda really is a monster. But when there will be peace, believe us, we will be able to talk also to those who supported Russia in the past and explain what we are about. What is our nature, and that we don't have any Nazis in Kyiv. Our president is a Jewish man. We have a lot of Jews in the government. We are a peaceful nation. What Nazi are, where Putin found those. This is their narratives. It's specifically created story, to show to the Russian population that we are collaborationists with former fascism regime or whatever. But we all know who we are, and I think the whole world already knows who we are. So they will, of course, understand the reality, and we will find a way how to talk to those.
I'm pretty sure, Mr. Ambassador, everyone can see through that propaganda. I think a critical question, and it must be a critical question for the government and you as a nation, is: do you see a way where the EU application can be speeded up? Of course, we both know certainly, in history this is a long and extensive process. Is there an appeal right now from Ukraine to have a special corridor into the at least association of the EU?
Of course, and that I think it's 2 days ago that the European Parliament voted and supported the idea for granting Ukraine membership status and to have a special procedure how to speed up this. And when I was talking to several EU ambassadors, also to US ambassador and Canada about the NATO development, also about the EU development, and asking, why didn't you allow Ukraine to join EU earlier? And they told us, that back in 90s there was kind of a window of opportunity after the split of the Soviet Union. The Baltic, for example, countries were independent. Also Poland and other Eastern European and Central European countries were already without this Soviet control. And they named it. It was, and according to them, that there were a lot of problems also in Russia. So they had this window of opportunity, and they immediately offered assistance, financial support, and at the end those countries joined the EU. And they told me that we are also waiting for the windows of opportunity for Ukraine. And they also confessed that, yeah, it was a big mistake that we haven't also decided to grant Ukraine a membership in the EU back then, because they said the Ukraine was a Soviet country. We didn't know whether the form that in the past communism, let's say, government would support this idea, so they were hesitating. Right now, I think we have again these windows of opportunity, and that's what we are trying to use. And I think, yes, Ukrainians, by paying the highest price for their freedom and these democratic values, proved that we are similar to you, to your people, and that we are able to work and to coexist within this EU family, and we deserve to have this membership.
So when this nightmare is over, hopefully soon, how do you see Ukraine starting? It is about, isn't it, this EU application to secure using this window of opportunity that it has arisen. And if there's anyone who paid the price to be a member of both NATO and EU, of course, this is Ukraine. But how do you see the next couple of years when hopefully all this nightmare is over?
Look, I see it in very bright colors. We already were talking to a lot of financial institutions, governments, who said that we will protect your country. When the war is over, we are ready to help. We have financial resources. We already communicated to the IMF, World Bank, others also. I think later we will also offer your bank kind of an opportunity to invest into Ukraine, to rebuild Ukraine from scratch, and it will be a win-win situation for all of us. Your companies will have a lot of work to do in Ukraine to rebuild and modernize Ukraine. Our people will have a lot of work what to do back then. And I think it will be really very, very positive and happy days and months of this cooperation between us and Europeans. You will see a lot of machines on the Ukrainian roads from the EU countries. You will see also a lot of engineers and other people from the EU who are helping to rebuild Ukraine. I'm more than sure that it will be the future for my country.
So I need to convey to you that we have an open Q&A session going on with the viewers. There is an enormous outpouring of support for your country, and we will make sure that all of this is conveyed to the embassy and you, sir, for doing this. I think you are running a little bit out of time, Mr. Ambassador. It's been an absolute pleasure, and that you even consider having this chat with us is amazing, considering that your country is at war. It is being invaded, and there is human losses every single day, which to us, to you, and everybody is the most important one. And let me also say that the way the president has conducted himself, which Kim mentioned, but also all of the parliamentaries across the aisle in Ukraine, they've been out, they're doing humanitarian work. From what I've seen, the way you treat prisoners from Russia with tea and warm blankets or whatever, it's just an amazing story, sir. So let me end by conveying on behalf of Saxo, I'm sure all of Denmark and all of Europe, that not only do we stand behind you, but we salute you for your courage, for your fight for decency. And I think you as a country will be the paradigm shift that changed security policy, but also humanitarian policy. Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this initiative. I really appreciate it. And as I mentioned, I mean, every single help which comes from any single company or physical persons is valued. Believe me, we see it. We communicate to our people back in Ukraine that stand strong. The more and more assistance is coming, everything will be fine. We are very positive about our future, and we believe in our victory. That's the most motivated things which is right now in the hearts of Ukrainians. So once again, thank you very much. I also wish your bank and also Denmark in general prosperity, because you just started surviving from the COVID. I see positive figures. Unfortunately, because of Putin, he spoiled everything, all the plans. Also, Ukraine was prospering very well. I mean, back in December last year, we had the best ever figures in terms of economic growth, and we had the biggest GDP. So that also the reason it gives me belief that Ukraine will survive and we will prosper. So many thanks for your initiative. We stay in touch.